Hello there. Insomnia may sound like a little problem, a minor problem, but for those people who suffer from insomnia, it's a serious issue. It feels like your body has hijacked your life. It's betrayed you, no matter what, it's keeping you up, and as a result, you're not functioning. It can be quite terrifying. For that reason, I'm going to teach you about insomnia today. When you are living your waking life, you have 2 points of perspective present within your being. You have your eternal essence, which some people call the soul, and you have your temporal perspective, which you call by your name. Your level of comfort or discomfort in this life has entirely to do with the vibrational difference between these 2 points of perspective. One thing you have to understand for this episode is the farther the difference is between those 2 perspectives on a vibrational level, the more discomfort you feel and the less energy is actually available to flow from your essence into your physical embodiment. But if you want to understand more about how these 2 perspectives work, I want you to watch a video that I have on YouTube. It's titled, "Happiness is the Purpose of Your Life." Want to know why? In the moment of sleep, unconsciously, your 2 points of perspective join, so there is no vibrational difference between them. There is no tug of war going on between them, and thus, immediately, more energy is available to your physical body. Most people experience sleep as refreshing because of that fact. Technically, a person would not need to sleep if they could find a way to consciously prevent their 2 perspectives from splitting while they were awake. This is why many yogis and meditation masters do not need sleep. Alas, most people are not capable of that in waking life, so we experience the need for sleep. So what does this mean if you have insomnia? It means that the tug of war, which is a vibrational tug of war, that is happening between your essence and your temporal perspective is so intense and so extreme that you are not even experiencing the tiny bit of relief or release of resistance that enables you to even fall asleep. If you struggle with insomnia, you struggle with resistance. There is a tug of war going on between your essence and your temporal perspective. Think about this for a minute. When you have a baby, that baby doesn't have an issue sleeping. They go to sleep immediately. They stay asleep. We don't hear about real big issues with insomnia relative to babies, unless they've had really extreme birth trauma usually. So why is that? It's because a baby does not have a formed ego yet. That means that their temporal perspective is not so vibrationally different from their essence. So there is no tug of war that's going on between their essence and their temporal perspective. No tug of war, no problems with sleep. Said more clearly, there is no contradiction between a baby's temporal self and their essence. So you can understand exactly what I mean by a tug of war between your essence and your temporal perspective, I've got some examples. Your essence says, I want to experience abundance, and because of my perspective, I know we could have it right now. While your temporal self says, I don't have enough money to start a business, so I have to work at this minimum wage job that I hate. Or your essence says, no, this is a really bad idea. And your temporal self says, no, this is the only thing that makes sense. Or your essence says, I want to be with that person. And your temporal self says, I'm going to get hurt by them. No way in hell. Do you see that inherent in each of these examples is a contradiction between the essence and the temporal self? This keeps a person in a restless state. For most people, the minute they release some kind of resistance, there is a pull, kind of like a magnetic pull, between the essence and the temporal perspective. So essentially, your non-physical perspective, your soul, is going to call you towards it. And the minute you release any resistance, the temporal self-perspective lines up with it. And on a physical dimension, we experience this as falling asleep. Okay, so now here's the crappiest part when it comes to insomnia. And those of you who suffer from insomnia, you know exactly what I mean. As if it's not bad enough to have an original tug of war going on between your essence and your temporal perspective, now you're going to go and stress about it. What you're going to do is panic about the fact that you can't fall asleep. You're thinking about all the negative things will happen as a result of not falling asleep. And what is this like? It's essentially like adding 2 giant muscle builder men to both sides of this tug-of-war fight. The contradiction now becomes your essence saying sleep and your temporal self saying, I can't sleep. So when you're suffering from insomnia, the first thing that has to be done is to release resistance to not sleeping in general. Okay, one thing you should know is that a lot of the reason we have so much resistance to the idea of not getting sleep is because of our childhoods. The average parent is really stressed out during the day. Those of you who have kids know exactly what I mean. There's that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, like if I don't get a break, I'm gonna go nuts, because watching another human being 24 hours a day to make sure they don't drown in a toilet or run out into the road or they're fed or they're clothed is exhausting. So what do we do as parents? We stress bedtime. You have to go to sleep. Now, partially this is our anxiety because of the fact that we know that when children are tired, they act crappy, which makes our job as a parent even harder. But part of this is also because we want a break. So the anxiety that whole condition creates in us makes us say what to our kid? No, you need to fall asleep right now. Right now is bedtime. If you don't go to bed, bad things will happen. So we actually transfer our sleep anxiety or no sleep anxiety to the children, and they grow up with that belief. This isn't to say that sleeping is totally unnecessary. Sleeping is healthy, and most people absolutely need it because they cannot maintain alignment between their temporal self and their essence. But the anxiety we have around the need for sleep is usually the byproduct of the transfer of the you need to sleep anxiety from our parents to us. Before we go further in this episode, what you need to know is there's a difference between positive insomnia and negative insomnia. We could accurately call positive insomnia excitement-induced insomnia, and negative insomnia anxiety-induced insomnia. The conflict with negative insomnia is between the essence, which wants the temporal self to align and knows that it would happen through sleeping, and the temporal self, which feels it cannot go to sleep. On the other hand, positive insomnia is a conflict between the essence, which wants the temporal self to align, but knows that would better be accomplished by staying awake, and the temporal self, which wants to fall asleep instead of awake. In the first case, if a person stays awake, they're going to feel terrible because there's no energy that is flowing from the essence into the physical embodiment if they stay awake. In the second case, however, the person doesn't actually need to sleep. If they would stay awake and stay in the flow of that essence, they would be essentially experiencing the exact same thing they would if they were to go to sleep. So they'll feel energized. If you experience positive insomnia, it means that you will be refreshed by something other than sleep. It's the call of Source, and you should never ignore or try to force yourself to sleep through the call of Source. Okay. Knowing this, I'm going to spell out what you should do if you're experiencing negative insomnia. Step 1. Think or say or do literally anything that will cause you to release resistance to the fact that you can't go to sleep. If you lay in bed and you can't fall asleep for more than 20 minutes, get out of bed and go do something more productive. During my years where I was struggling with insomnia, I had a little trick. Every time that happened, I would tell myself, this is a message from the universe that I shouldn't be in bed right now. So I'm going to just follow what my intuition tells me I should be doing right now. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's watching a movie. Whatever it is, I would just go do it. Literally do anything that gets your mind off of the idea, I have to sleep, because that is a state of resistance. It's going to keep you awake. But now in the next step, I am going to tell you the most important thing that you could possibly do to solve your issue with insomnia. So here's step 2. Get out a pen and paper. I want you to write down and figure out exactly what the conflict is, or the contradiction, between your essence and your temporal self-perspective. What is this tug-of-war that's going on right now in this moment that you can't sleep? Step 3, pretty obvious step. Think or say or do anything that will help you to resolve that conflict between your essence and your temporal self so that tug-of-war can stop continuing. For example, if I realized that the contradiction between my essence and temporal self was that my essence wanted to move to another country, but my temporal self was resisting the idea with all kinds of disastrous scenarios, I would write down everything that would make me feel better about moving. Then I might begin taking actions on my plans about moving that would make me feel less fear about actually going. Naturally, I would feel the tension and resistance go away as the tug-of-war ends between these two aspects of me, and I would drift off to sleep. Nothing will serve to end insomnia as much as becoming aware of the conflict between your essence and temporal self and doing anything you can to resolve that conflict. Ease in the being naturally leads most people with insomnia to sleep. 4. If you feel compelled to take seriously drastic action, you can reset your internal clock. To do this, you have to 100% commit to staying awake for 36 hours straight. Make sure you don't drive a car while you do this challenge. But 36 hours completely awake, you make sure to go to bed at the time you want to make sure you go to bed in the future. You go to bed at that time after 36 hours, set an alarm clock, wake yourself up 8 hours later, and then go to bed the same time you chose to begin with as your bedtime. And you keep repeating this cycle over and over again. So only one time you're going to make yourself stay awake for 36 hours straight. Then you're going to start going to bed at the exact same time every night and sleeping, setting your alarm clock for 8 hours later. You've got to get your body on a clock. Now, a sleep schedule is really, really important for people who naturally struggle with insomnia. Essentially, you need to train your body when to go to bed and when to wake up. So it sets that expectation. Your brain is all about patterns. You have to create a pattern for your brain if you want your brain to shut off at a specific time and wake up at a specific time. Step 5, you could meditate instead of sleep. Meditation is actually more effective as a tool for rejuvenation because it accomplishes the same thing that sleep does, only consciously instead of unconsciously. There's a reason that people who meditate need much less sleep. Step 6, use positive focus. The reality is, if you're suffering from insomnia, you are on a negative focus spiral. Now, that negative focus spiral is usually the negative focus of, I can't sleep and why it's so horrible that I can't sleep right now, on top of another negative spiral, which is that conflict between the temporal and eternal self. So what you're going to do is lie in bed and you're going to think about every positive thing you can possibly think about. Your mind is already obsessing, so direct that obsession. Positive focus on anything, no matter how small or large, actually causes a tug of war in your body to end. So make your mind obsessively hunt for any thought or thing that makes you feel better. So if I'm lying in bed, I might think about, do I like the temperature in the room? What do I like about my room? What do I like about the day that I just had? Fill in the blank. Anything's game, as long as it feels good to think. 7, you got to reduce your stress in life in general. Way easier said than done, I realize. Obviously, the greatest way to reduce your stress is to resolve the conflict between your essence and your temporal self. But beyond that, reducing stress in general in your life is important. For some suggestions about how to do this, I encourage you to watch my videos on YouTube titled How to Get Rid of Anxiety and Uncertainty, How to Deal with Uncertainty. 8, this step may seem like a complete no-brainer, but it would surprise you how much of the time people can't sleep because of something super simple. Something like the room is not dark enough, or there's too much noise, or my mattress isn't comfortable. Or, a real big one is the room's actually too hot. So what I want you to do is to eliminate any potential additives to you not being able to sleep, so you can make sure that none of those are something that you're grappling with. Step 9, you need to change your diet. You have got to eliminate sugar and caffeine from your diet if you suffer from insomnia. Make sure that your last meal of the day is very low on carbohydrates. On the other hand, high in healthy fats, things like avocado, omega-3 oils, seeds, coconut oil, and nuts. Make sure you're eating enough foods that are rich in magnesium and potassium as well, and if you don't, take a good quality supplement that provides your body with these things. Also drink plenty of fluids because dehydration lends itself to insomnia. 10, you got to stay away from things like TV screens, computer screens, and phone screens that cast off blue light. What this kind of light does is it tells your brain, it's time to be awake now! Yay! Okay, so you are fighting against your brain to try to go to sleep. So if you're one of those people who can't avoid these things, then what you need to do is to look for filters. You can find apps that do this, that make it so that that blue light is blocked from your computer screen, or your phone screen, or your TV screen. But for the rest of you, and this is better, stay away from any of these types of devices, electronic devices, for an hour at least before going to bed. Step 11, create a wind-down ritual. Now, parents, usually when they have little kids especially, have a very strict schedule. and they wind their child down in a very specific way to go to bed. Why? Because it works. So what I want you to do is to pretend that you're a little kid again and you're going to parent yourself. You're going to create a go-to-bed ritual for yourself. Tailor this ritual to what works to make you feel relief. For example, take a warm bath with Epsom salts. Rub essential oils specifically for sleep onto your neck and chest. Do a wind down activity that makes you feel ease, like reading something that makes you feel good, or writing, or listening to something that relaxes you. Not only does this work because of the relaxing nature of these activities you're going to select, but you're actually training your brain into a pattern. Your brain is going to form an association, a connection between these activities and going to bed, and so these activities then become the trigger for your brain to sleep. You're essentially programming yourself. You can ask yourself, why do I want to sleep? When you come up with the answer, you can try to brainstorm any other way that you could get those things, those needs, those wants, without sleep, through any other means than sleep. Insomnia may feel like the end of sanity as you know it. But really, you don't have to keep telling yourself the story that something's wrong with you and that's why you can't sleep. More often than not, what it is that there's a contradiction going on inside you. So the question is, what is that contradiction? Have a good week.